there isn't a space for men to speak about their emotions, to speak about what they're going through and kind of the pressure, the pressures that they have, because for such a long time they were told that they weren't allowed to actually speak about these things, and so that for that exact reason, I feel like there isn't any male version of Iggyldn. There isn't like this male collaborative space where people can speak and have that positive reinforcement. In my kind of upbringing and as I was kind of getting older, that I feel like men were kind of almost doing this service to women because they weren't able to address their own emotions. And I feel like when I was younger, I saw that firsthand. I saw how like men in general, not just like my father or like my uncle or, you know, like my brothers, it was just men in general, weren't able to really discuss their emotions, and they hid them behind closed doors, or they made it seem that they didn't have any, and also they were reinforcing the same stereotypes and the same social kind of pressures that weren't made for them, that weren't kind of like, that didn't give them a voice, that didn't give them a kind of a hope, and they weren't like benefiting. There was no power that they had. It was almost this unspoken rule that we just had to be like this. And so for such a long time I felt that I didn't want that to be my own kind of like narrative, and then I was like, actually I don't want it to be my children's narrative, and I don't want it to be anyone's narrative, and I feel like we need to just talk about it so that we can actually make it happen.
They said I'll inherit the earth one day, so no one could know I was weak. Because men like us don't cry.
I never really got to grips with it until I was at university, when I realized that so many people were affected by hypermasculinity. You kind of go through the campus and you're like, yeah, this is the guy that just, like, there's a reason why guys feel like they have to wear certain things, speak about certain things, not show certain things. And I was like, I never had that upbringing. I was always taught that I could be the best person, I could live my best life. Like I could, I don't know, wear whatever I wanted to wear and like say whatever I wanted to say and show emotion. That was like I feel like emotion and like feelings and just like talking was like the building blocks of my whole family and upbringing. So like my dad is a very like, kind of like expressionate dad. My mum's very expressionate, and I feel like our whole family are very like expressionate people. So I never really had that kind of like difficulty up until university, when I realized that people just weren't like me, and I started comparing myself to other people.
You see, our hands were not made for such leisure, labor, and society tells us to be heavy, never swaying, steady, never wailing, ready, never breaking. So where do I fit in?
I basically decided to have like two main kind of limbs to the whole film, which are blackness, to look at the idea of colorism, and how colour plays a massive importance as to how men are perceived and their masculinity, but also the idea of masculinity itself and the way you're supposed to look. Like a masculine man is quite big, or like he's like tall, or he, you know, there's all these kind of like ideas as to what this man is supposed to be. So I wanted to show the different types of men, to show that it doesn't mean to be a black man and to be masculine doesn't mean that you have to be this certain type of stereotype. You can be all of these things and still be masculine. You can be all of these things and still be a man.
We are yet to overcome any emotion but that of anger until we are behind bars or 6 feet under. But why aren't we taught to drop down our barriers and pick up our pens? My fellow brothers, we have a lot of work to do.
How it was shot was basically based off of kind of my idea of like, how do I break down what masculinity is at the moment. I wanted to use like the blue background because everyone knows that kind of blue is like for like boys and pink is for girls, but I didn't want to be so explicit in the way I was trying to show masculinity is for everyone. And so I wanted to use the same color that's used for like stereotypically what men are supposed to kind of like lean towards, and have that as the backdrop of everything. So then, yeah, so it kind of grew from this whole kind of like feminist movement and gender equality, and understanding that feminism didn't it didn't like threaten the man. And through that, I felt, how do I kind of like make sure that men are included in this conversation, and then it all started through masculinity. And I thought that that's the direction I wanted to take on it, because I knew that men kind of like impose these kind of like hidden rules and these kind of like barriers, and also they almost act as like a police. They almost police it themselves. So like, for example, knowing fully well that they are unable to be these strong men, they always tell other men to man up, and other men like to be strong, and other men to like they can't stop, like they need to stop acting like women. And I feel like that's just like 100% their own way of using their power to deflect the situation. It was interesting to like get like a lot of like Europeans and their kind of like background, and the African diaspora and their that kind of segment of the world to respond back and be like, well, yeah, we love this. But it's interesting to see like there's like black males in South Korea just going, yeah, we have to do this. But not even that, like just people understanding that it's a topic, it's a thing that people need to speak about.
I wish you taught me where I stood with you. I wish you taught me I could stand tall enough to wear those shoes you wore so much I guess I misunderstood. Father and son.
I think fatherhood has definitely elements of Black Boys Don't Cry, but also it speaks largely about kind of like men kind of like stifling their own children's ability to make decisions and their own children's humanity by imposing their own insecurities.
So how do you fix this shipwreck history of dad meets son, son becomes man, man becomes dad, dad doesn't act like dad anymore?
As you're a child, you have these kind of like preconceived notions as how you are supposed to be, and then suddenly when you grow older, it doesn't get any better. You don't actually start realizing that, oh, now I can live my life to the fullest, and I can express myself and show my emotions and be vulnerable and be happy and be sad and tell that to my partner. It's about you start to realize that the same things that encaged you when you were young are the same things that you use to encage other people. I've been really inspired by the 1960s, about the jazz era, like kind of like the fabrics, the clothes, the trends, the attitudes of the time. And I feel like a lot of the time in this kind of social media frenzy of a world that we live in, I feel like a lot of people aren't realizing the importance of social interactions and the importance of knowing yourself and your self-representation. I feel like we need to stop seeing ourselves as brands, and we need to start seeing ourselves more as human beings. So Silk is a response to that. It's like it's looking back in time and reclaiming another narrative. Men need to access all of their emotions that make them complete humans in order to not only facilitate them, but facilitate the space for women and the space for their children and for everyone to live better lives and just dab on them.